Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we leave for 2 episodes and then just don't ever explain why.
Or how. Or what we were doing in the meantime.
Yep, just straight up, bye.
But no, this week we watched the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, my least favorite serial
Same.
so far.
It was terrible.
It really was. You know, before this, there had been a bunch of serials and episodes that I would say I disliked, but I at least found some redeeming qualities in all of those. In this, I actually just hated it.
Yeah, there was nothing redeeming about this serial.
Nothing good about this serial. So much, in fact, that I kind of just zoned out during the last 2 episodes.
It was a chore. I had to force myself to watch these episodes.
Yep.
It didn't help that they were reconstructions.
It didn't. It really didn't. You know, before this, I mean, we both obviously don't like reconstructions as much as actual episodes, but before this, you had been, I think, more averse to them than I had. I mean, I obviously didn't like them either, but I was kind of okay with them before this, but, you know, after watching these, I've started hating reconstructions just a little bit more. And we have a whole season of them in season 4.
Yeah. Oh, gee. Well, I guess we better summarize this. So we do that every week. We could try. I mean, I had no idea what happened.
Yeah, I wasn't really following it. It was a lot of political, noble nonsense. You know,
this is what happens when you try to write a purely historical serial. Comes off terribly.
Yeah.
So the TARDIS materializes like it does at the start of every serial, except Edge of Destruction. And the Doctor and Stephen go to the bar.
And they figure out that they're in Paris in the 16th century. And there's, I believe there's this group of scientists or whatever, who I guess are Huguenots, who are
being hunted, I guess.
Yeah, by the Catholics.
So the Doctor's like, "Oh, better go find Pressler. You know, his work is pretty cool. I'm gonna go find him. Stephen, don't get into trouble."
And had you heard of Preslin before? Because I hadn't,
Pressler?
Actually.
No, never.
Yeah, me neither. I mean,
Preslin, yeah, Preslin. Never heard of him.
Apparently he did some work on germs or something. I don't know. I thought that was
okay.
Louis Pasteur. But either way, yeah. So he goes to Preslin's house.
Well, he tells Stephen, "Don't get into trouble," and
Which he does, obviously.
Yep. What? So he's just sitting at the bar, like, "Yep. You know, maybe I should go find the Doctor now." And there's these people like Gaston and Nicholas.
Yeah. Then there were tons of side characters in this serial, and the naming was just really confusing, and who each person was.
You knew who Gaston was because he had that facial hair.
Yeah, you knew Gaston, you knew Nicholas, but then after that, just who was everyone? I mean, I didn't follow it that well. We might want to scroll down to the plot so we actually know what's going on. Yeah, as you might be able to tell at this point, we really don't know what happened.
Oh, there was that whole scene with the wine, and they were toasting to, Damn. They were toasting, they were toasting to Henry of Navarre, and then some guy's like, "You should toast to the Queen as well, even though she's Catholic." So they're like, "Okay." And then, like, Gaston's
always really eager to draw his sword, so he draws his sword. And
they're like, whoa, Gaston, calm down. Gaston.
And then Stephen leaves, I think. Or something.
Well, Stephen wants to find the Doctor now because he sees when the Doctor leaves, that guy follows the Doctor and he's like, "Wow, that's pretty sketch."
Right, and there's a curfew.
That guy following the Doctor is just never resolved, by the way. I just realized that subplot is never resolved. But yeah, there's a curfew. And so now Stephen is stuck with Nicholas and Gaston. They're like, "Hey, that's chill. Come with us. We'll go stay at the Admiral de Coligny's house." So they're like, "All right, let's go."
So they do that. And
then the doctor's found Preston's shop. He goes in, he's like, hey. And the guy's like, well, Preston's never lived here for like 10 years. And the doctor's like, well, Mr. Preston, I'd like to study your work. And
then Preston's like, yeah, it's me. I just don't tell anyone it's me as a safety precaution. Just a safety measure
Preston's
or whatever.
like, here you go. Here's some stuff. I hope you have luck doing whatever you're doing. And then the doctor leaves and doesn't show up till episode 4.
Yep. He's just not in this serial. Honestly, so far, the writers have just been writing out the doctor. I mean,
well, it wasn't
think about season 3
it
as a
wasn't
whole.
that bad when the doctor did it in the Daleks' Monster Panic. So it was a 12-episode serial. But in a 4-episode serial, if he leaves for 2 episodes, he's gone for like half the serial.
Yep.
I really hated this serial.
And not only is the doctor now gone, Steven also doesn't really do anything.
Steven just makes everything worse.
Yeah, he actually does.
So he goes to the bar the next day because the doctor and Steven had originally agreed on the same day they got there to be there at nighttime.
And you knew that wasn't going to work out.
So Steven goes back the next morning hoping to find them, and this girl, or did that happen the night before? Well, at some point, Steven's at the bar, he's standing outside, this girl runs past, these guards are chasing her, the girl, like, runs into Steven and runs inside, and then Gaston hides her. And the guards come in like, where's the girl? Gaston draws his sword.
And that is that the point where you find out the bartender is working for both the Huguenots and the Catholics? Or is that later?
It's off to Gaston leaves.
Oh. Yeah, the bartender's an informant for both sides.
Whatever makes the money, man. No, yeah, okay, that was the night before, because then Steven comes back the next morning and asks the bartender if the old man ever showed up. The bartender's like, no, he never showed up.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So that happened the night before Steven went to the Admiral's house. And they sent the girl to the Admiral's house as well. So now they're all, like, having a party at the Admiral's house or something. I don't know. And so now episode 2, I think. Wow, episode 2 and 3. I just don't remember what happened at all. Political stuff.
Yeah, it was highly political, highly unfollowable.
So Steven goes to the bar, discovers the doctor's not there, so he's like, oh shoot. So he comes back to the Admiral's house, and meanwhile, Anne has told, like before this, Anne has told Gaston and Nicholas and Steven about what she overheard that made her scared at the abbot's house.
Right, that they were going to kill the sea beggar or whatever.
No, Steven overhears that later. This is when Anne overhears like a reference to a post-massacre.
You followed this pretty well, actually.
Yeah, surprisingly. I can't remember what town it was, but it's something that started with a V, but Anne...
Oh, yeah, right. Vassy.
Yeah, Vassy. And so that scares Anne because her dad died at Vassy, and she believes they're going to do it again. And then, so, like, the guards who work for the abbot come to the house to get Anne back. But Gaston's like, what? That's not Anne, that's Genevieve. She's worked here forever.
And they're like, no, that looks like Anne. He's like, nope.
This guy's name's Roger. The guy who comes to get Anne.
Roger Colbert.
Stephen Colbert. So Roger leaves, and then outside, Steven sees the abbot. He's like, that's the doctor. And that was the worst thing he could have said right there, because Nicholas and Gaston hate the abbot because he's Catholic and they're Huguenots.
And they're like, wow, you're in league with the abbot?
Get the heck out of here. Leave.
Yep.
Leave.
And
Gaston draws his sword.
Yeah.
So he leaves.
So yeah. No, don't they accompany him to Preslin's house? Or was that later? Remember Steven and I think Nicholas go to Preslin's house.
Oh no, yeah, you're right.
So Steven wants to prove that the doctor is just pretending to be the abbot for his own reasons or whatever, because the doctor does stuff like that. So he asks Nicholas to go to Preslin's house with him.
Okay, before we continue, the first episode ends with that shot of the abbot from behind, and I thought it actually was the doctor, and it just wasn't explained. But then you find out in episode 4 that...
Yeah, the abbot's not actually the doctor. He's played by William Hartnell, but he's not the doctor. He just looks exactly like him. And the doctor is just missing in action.
So, Stephen goes to Preston's shop, and there's a girl outside who's like, no, man, Pressler's been taken away. He hasn't been here for like 10 years. And Steven's like, no!
And then Nicholas is like, oh, hell no, you're in league with the Catholics.
So he's like, I'm going to take you back to Gaston. We're going to kill you. Or something like that. But then Stephen makes a run for it and gets away.
And
he goes to the abbot's house because he wants to meet with the abbot, who he still thinks is the doctor. And
where's Anne at this point? Isn't she...
She's still at the admiral's house.
Yeah.
She doesn't leave until Stephen comes back. Again. For the third time. Remember, because he goes back and then he leaves and then he goes back again. So anyway, Stephen goes to find the abbot, and before this, he's like, okay. He overhears the abbot talking about, oh, the sea beggar's gonna die. So Stephen's like, oh, I guess I should tell Gaston and Nicholas. So he goes back.
Right, because Gaston and Nicholas were talking with the Huguenots or whatever, or their sort of society or league, about how the Catholics are probably going to assassinate someone, and they think it's Henry Navarre.
Right, but Stephen finds out it's going to be the sea beggar, quote unquote, and he doesn't know who the sea beggar is. But he told Nicholas and Gaston if he found out anything important, he would come back. So he goes back. Of course, Gaston's there and Nicholas isn't. Gaston draws his sword. Stephen takes his sword out, but he doesn't want to fight, so he ends up getting disarmed by Gaston. And then he leaves, and then Nicholas comes back, and he's like, he probably had a message, you fool!
Yeah, Nicholas starts trusting Stephen at that point, because he figures there would be no good reason for him to come back if he was a Catholic. But right. Gaston's still wary.
And then at the very end, Admiral de Coligny is like, yeah, the king nicknamed me the sea beggar. And then the audience is like, oh man, he's gonna die.
At least the audience that was following along with this.
Well, I was, and I was like, well, even because I was following along, I was still like, wow, saw that coming. So, when Stephen left that time, Anne decides to go with him because she doesn't have anything else better to do. Yeah, and they go hang out in Preston's shop.
Yeah, Anne's worried that the guards will kill her or something because of what she overheard.
So Stephen decides to go to the abbot's house again.
Because he still thinks the abbot is the doctor.
He disguises himself using some of Preston's clothes. He goes to the house. He isn't recognized. He says he wants to meet with the abbot, but the captain of the guard doesn't let him. And he goes out of the room and then overhears them saying that they're going to assassinate the admiral. I guess they decided to drop the nickname at that point. During this whole thing, there's that whole subplot with the Queen and Henry of Navarre. And she's like, if you don't kill all the Huguenots, they're going to all kill you. And he's like, what? Mom, please. She's like, I'm the Queen, yo.
But then at that point, you see the gunman about to kill the admiral as he's walking through the street, and he misses. Well, no,
Stephen gets back to Nicholas first and tells him and warns him, and then they go and try to save the admiral, but they're too late. And the gunman...
Well, he doesn't die, he just gets shot in the arm.
Right, but they're still too late.
Yeah.
He gets shot in the arm, and then it cuts to the scene where they're talking about the news having not arrived yet of the admiral's assassination. And the guy's like, he's a pretty good shot, he won't miss.
But then the abbot comes back in, it's like, it failed.
No, the abbot was already in. The messenger came in.
Right. And then, what's-his-face is like, wow, Abbott, everything's gone wrong since you've been here. It must be a plot on your part. And then at that point, you're thinking, yeah, it really is the doctor. But nope.
No, because they killed the abbot!
Yep.
And at this point, you're like, wow, they just wrote the doctor out of the series. Wow. And then Stephen, goes back to the admiral's house and finds out the abbot's dead, and he's like, oh no. Oh no!
So then he and Anne ransack Preslin's house looking for the TARDIS key because Steven thinks the doctor's dead and just wants to get the hell out.
Well, first he goes to the Abbott's house, sees the dead body, he's like, no, what have they done to you? Then the whole crowd turns on Steven and assumes he did it. And they start chasing him.
Oh, I don't remember this part at all. I think I was just completely
That was the
zoned
end of
out
episode 3.
I think episode 3 and 4 I was basically completely zoned out for.
Episode 3 ends with Steven running up to the body like, oh no, what have they done? Then the guy's like, he's one of them, get him! And they like chase him. And then episode 4, he's in Preston's shop again. He's like, well, better find his clothes, better find the TARDIS key. So him and Anne are looking for the doctor's clothes. So he must have changed into the Abbott outfit. And Anne finds his cane, and then he's like, but where's his clothes? It's too bad he's dead. And then the doctor's like, no, what?
Yep.
And Steven's like, doctor!
Yep. The doctor was just there the whole time. Not assisting Steven. Not doing anything.
Where was he? What was he doing? And then the doctor, he's like, wait a minute. What's the date? Oh no. And you better go back to your aunt's house. Steven, we gotta get out of here. Quick, Steven, to the time machine.
So Anne goes back to her aunt's house, and Steven and the doctor leave, and once they're back in the TARDIS, the doctor's like, yeah, it was St. Bartholomew's Eve. 10,000 Parisians are going to die tomorrow.
And then we see this... the reconstruction is like painting, like picture drawings or paintings of the massacre, and sounds of people dying.
Yep.
So the death count's at 10,161. Although we won't. We'll just
right. We're not counting 10,000.
161. No word. 148. I don't know.
Yeah. So then Steven is pretty pissed that the doctor sent Anne back to her death, and the doctor's like, "Well, we can't be concerned about every little."
Well, here's the thing: the doctor wouldn't have had to send her to her death if Steven hadn't gotten involved. Not only that, Anne dies in the original timeline, presumably, if she's actually a Huguenot. So it's not like the doctor changed anything.
Right, and Steven gets his feathers ruffled.
He gets so mad. He's like, you know what, I'm leaving the next time this TARDIS stops. So it stops, and the doctor's like, there you go.
And they're in London, 1966.
Somehow.
So Steven just leaves.
The doctor should have got out and been like, Ian, Barbara, hey!
Yeah, he should have said hi to Ian and Barbara. No,
instead he sits down and has this depressing monologue about how everybody leaves him and nobody wants to stay because they're all too eager to get back to his own time.
And how he just might want to go back to his own planet and stop his adventures.
Actually, that was the only scene in this entire serial I liked. Because it was the only one that did anything for his character.
Basically. And then
this girl runs into the TARDIS.
A Susan lookalike runs into the TARDIS. And the doctor's like, what? Who are you? She's like, oh, I was just looking for a police box. There's an injured boy down the road. The doctor's like, well, we'll just get out and find another police box.
And then Steven runs back inside. He's like, 2 policemen are coming. Quick, we've got to leave, doctor. And he's like, why are you back? He's like, quick, just leave. So he's like, okay. And
then Steven's like, who's this girl? And the doctor's like, oh, she just ran in. And Steven's like, you know you'll never be able to return to your own time, right? And she's like, yeah, I don't care.
Worst way to introduce a companion ever.
But I give it a pass because it was hilarious. So yeah, turns out her name is Dodo, and she's a new companion, and her last name is Chaplet, so Steven's like, could it be the great-great-great-granddaughter of Anne Chaplet? And I was just like, no, they probably just have the same last name. And that's how it ends.
So many things in this serial are bad. So many things.
Well, it was the worst serial.
Oh yeah, and it ends with the doctor like, hey Steven, doesn't she look like my granddaughter? And he's like, doctor, I never met your granddaughter. And the doctor's like, oh yeah. Oops.
No.
Yeah, that's basically how it ends.
Yeah. What can I say about this serial? other than it was bad. Just nothing.
It was so hard to get involved in it.
You ended up following it pretty well, I think. I mean, you said you didn't, but you had a better understanding of it than I did.
I guess. I mean, I did watch basically this entire serial yesterday. I watched 2 episodes yesterday and 2 the day before.
Oh yeah, we should probably bring up that we're not watching the episodes together anymore. From here on out, we're going to be watching them separately.
Yep. School ended, and we're on summer. And yeah.
And yes, that's happening. So, yeah.
So we're not with each other to make witty commentary about how bad the serial was while we were watching it. There's actually nothing to say about this. Oh, there is one thing to say, actually. So I went in knowing the Abbott wasn't the Doctor, because I already knew this was the first serial in which the Doctor plays another character who's not himself.
Right, Hartnell.
Yeah, Hartnell plays a character who's not the Doctor.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. So honestly, up right until the last minute, I was just thinking that the Doctor was the Abbott, and he was gonna pull some awesome stunt or whatever. He didn't actually die. But, yeah. And I was like, what? The Abbott wasn't the Doctor? Whoa. But at the same time, I didn't really care because I hated this serial.
If there was just one scene where the Doctor's like, oh yeah, I was doing blah, 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 it would have made the whole thing better. If the Doctor had a legitimate reason to not be there, it would have made the whole thing better.
It would have made it worse if he was like, yeah, I was just hanging out here, slacking off.
So many things wrong.
What was he doing? Maybe there's a novel about it. There's a novel about like every possible thing.
In the reboot, in the very first episode of the reboot, the 9th Doctor meets Rose Tyler, and she doesn't go with him, and he goes away, and then he comes back, and he's like, oh yeah, did I mention it's a time machine? And there's a whole bunch of novels detailing all the adventures he has between when he leaves and shows up 1 minute later. So, who knows? But, he couldn't have taken the TARDIS, because at this point he doesn't know how to control the TARDIS, and he would never have been able to get back to Stephen.
Doctor's Adventures in Paris, 1572. Okay, I didn't really know what what St. Bartholomew's Eve was. Did you? Going into this?
I didn't.
And I didn't look it up either, so I still don't know. I mean, I didn't even know about the massacre either. Apparently there was one.
Wikipedia, St. Bartholomew's Day's Massacre. Targeted group of assassinations, followed by a wave of Catholic mob violence. Hey, this is the picture we saw in the reconstruction.
Except in color.
Yeah, why did they put it in color in the reconstruction?
Maybe they actually used those images in the episode.
Maybe.
I don't know. And we'll never know.
Yes, see, it took place 5 days after the wedding of King's sister Margaret to the Protestant Henry III of Navarre, future Henry V of France. The eve of the feast of Bartholomew the Apostle.
Huh. Well, that's what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't doubt that the massacre was a real thing.
Yeah, me neither.
My question is, why did they have to write a Doctor Who episode where the Doctor shows up the day before the massacre, or 2 days before it, and just leaves?
I just didn't like how this was more about the historical event than it was the Doctor's adventure kind of during the historical event, which is because most of the historical serials have been like the backdrop of a historical event, but it's still focused on the Doctor's adventures. This was more about the event, which I didn't like.
This felt almost like a documentary, like a docudrama.
Like one of those documentaries you'd see on History Channel that have like...
You mean History Channel, aka the Nazis plus Pawn Stars channel?
Right, Ancient Aliens and Ice Road Truckers.
Ice Road Truckers isn't that bad of a TV show.
I haven't watched it.
I've only seen one episode. I was on a plane and I was really bored. fun fact, on the same plane I watched an episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think that's all we have to say about this. This terrible abomination of a serial.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time we've agreed a serial is really bad since The Edge of Destruction.
Is it?
Yeah, because since then, there were serials where you said were bad, and I said were bad, except maybe Galaxy 4.
Yeah, honestly, so far season 3 has left kind of a bad taste in my mouth. There just hasn't been
Except
that
for
much
Dalek's
good.
Master Plan.
Yeah, Dalek's Master Plan.
I enjoyed Dalek's Master Plan. The other 4 serials we've seen at this point, which would be The Mythmakers, Galaxy 4, Mission to the Unknown, which I'm counting as a serial for some reason, and then this one. Yeah.
Kind of fell flat. Just not as good as what we've seen in season 1 and 2. But we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
I mean, I think they're running out of ideas for the first Doctor.
Well, they are writing him out soon.
Yep.
To say goodbye to the first Doctor.
That's gonna be a depressing episode.
It is. I've grown pretty attached to the first Doctor. It'd be sad to see him go.
And then we're gonna grow attached to the second and the third. And definitely the fourth, who's here for 6 seasons.
5th through 8th?
5th maybe. 6th.
At least I don't know anything about the 2nd through 8th.
Yeah, same.
Because I ended up spoiling a lot of first Doctor stuff.
The 8th is only there for 1 episode. There's not much to know about him.
Then again, if you spoil one thing, you've basically spoiled everything. Or you've spoiled a good portion of what he does. So they're more impactful.
Well, I know who he fights in that episode, but that doesn't mean I know the whole plot.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I mean...
It actually doesn't. I have no idea what happens in that episode. I only know the antagonist.
Okay. But yeah.
Email us. Nobody emails us.
You should watch this serial and tell us how bad it was in your own words. And...
Don't subject yourself to that. We did it so you didn't have to. But hopefully next week's serial will be better. Email us, thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Only 4 easy payments of $19.99.
No, that's not required.
Check us out on iTunes if you're listening to this on the website, which you might be, I don't know. Or if you download it off the website, because you can do that. Why has episode 1 been downloaded so many times? Side note, it's been downloaded way above any other episode. Rate us on iTunes if you're listening on iTunes. And yeah, I think that's everything I needed to say. Next week,
we will be watching The Ark. Hopefully we will be better than this.
Hopefully. It's not a reconstruction, so that's good.
Yeah! But until then, the end.